SOA show. My name is Joanne Ravicchio.
And hi, I'm Judy Walker.
Tonight we have a special guest, Payton Corbett. If you don't know, he is running for mayor this year. And hopefully, with the help of a lot of your friends, you might be elected. The reason why we have you here is that we want your view on addiction. You know, first of all, is there anyone that has a problem in your family or your friends?
Yes, like many people, quite a few. My uncle Dennis succumbed to his addiction and years of depression around this time last year, and he has three adult sons, and two of his sons are both addicted to opiates. One in western or central Mass, and one down in New Haven, Connecticut area. And they've both been, struggling like lots of people, on again, off again. And the younger brother that lives in Western Mass had been doing quite well until my uncle passed away. So I think he's back on a good track right now, but he struggled for a little while after the death of his father. And God, it's thinking about since I grew up in Connecticut, and I moved to Somerville about 13 years ago. But when I was 15 years old, one of my best friends, I grew up skateboarding actually, and a very good friend of mine, he was a couple years older than me, he ran away from home and ran away took a Greyhound bus to California to skateboard. And we were able to keep in touch. Because he was a little bit older than me, his parents were just kind of like, well, you're too old, we're not going to drag you back, do the best you can, we'll help you out a little bit. And I was able to go out there and visit him. And at the time, he was just, kind of like a regular young person, would drink alcohol and maybe smoke pot and stuff. And somewhere along the line, he got into doing harder drugs. And I got a call one night, I'll never forget it, from a friend saying, "Hey man, Garrett died." And Garrett died, how? And he said, "From a drug overdose." And having to tell my mother that, I was 15, so having to tell my mother that this kid that she used to drive to the skateboard park, and of course he was a little bit older than me, and when you're younger, that 3 years is a big difference when you're younger. But having to tell my mother that was pretty difficult, and then of course, dealing with all this stuff, and that was almost 20 years ago at this point. So
Wow.
it's really not as prevalent as it is now. So it was pretty crazy at the time, I guess.
Well, that was about 1997. Is that what you're saying, around that time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, it was 2009, and at that time, you really didn't hear so much about opiate overdoses.
Right. Well, at that point too, it's kind of like was almost we were talking about this the other day, just about when people they were robbing the pharmacies here, and Frankie was kind of at the end of that cusp of going on, because what they did is they didn't start with the heroin, they started with
Right.
condoms, and then the pharmacy things went on, and everybody was going to jail, and then they were selling them $80 a pill. I mean, it was like if you wanted an
They
80,
still
that's
are.
what, $80, right? And it made it impossible for people to obtain them, and they had them at that point. There was no not doing it, so they started with the heroin, and then Frankie was
Yeah.
right at that cusp, and then it basically kind of died out a little bit. Then and it's crazy that the people that were passing were kind of the people that were like always in trouble, always struggling, and no one really paid mind to it, because it never mind that they were alive, but obviously they just weren't up there to count. And then next thing you know, it to the date, you have people of importance, their family, their children are dying now, and now it's starting to become very important.
yeah, I've said before to people that and lots of people have said this, it kind of didn't become a crisis until middle class and rich people, primarily white people, their children started dying from it, and then it became a crisis. And it was a crisis long before that,
Right.
but that's what, unfortunately, it took for people to really start paying attention.
Well, I know, they thought, well, the idea that people say, well, it's their choice. Well, my son had an accident, and he had both bones broken in his left leg, and he had also something happened to his wrist. He had to have surgery. I don't know exactly what happened, but he had to have pins in his leg, and after a motorcycle accident. Before then, I think that he tried drugs here and there, but that wasn't his thing. A lot of people experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
they
have
were all
myself.
Drinking. They were all in the park in the back drinking and not doing things like that.
Right.
Right.
But what happened was that he asked the nurse at the time. See, I don't think the doctors really weren't educated that well as far as what these drugs did and if they were addictive, and it was just pharma trying to promote them by giving them, we'll give you a trip, or or this or that, and when they should have been educated, because that drug, from what I understand, and I'm not a doctor, is that the drug was actually made for people that were dying of cancer to ease their pain in the last part of their of their terminal illness. So you can understand, being human and want to help someone that is in so much pain, but not to give it to a young boy at 21 years old that has a motorcycle accident, and then 11 years, actually between 10 and 11 years, he struggled with addiction.
Well, that's where I think that people also make a mistake by when they think of somebody that suffers from addiction. I think that they think of people 40, 50 years old when they should be thinking of people that are 16 to 28 is just the cusp of mass amount of kids. They're just kids, and still it baffles me for to see the world close their eyes. We see it all the time that they threatened abortion, and thousands of women and moms came out of the woodwork to tell their story, to fight for their rights. And we're moms, we're women, we come out to try to save our children's life, and no one comes out with us, and it's just, it baffles me, it really does. Now, you're running for mayor and for city of Somerville, and what are some programs that you're going to, so what are some programs that you're going to do, and are you going to allow people to come into the school system and upgrade the programs that they teach already to age appropriate and to lower the age of talking to the kids about drugs? Because I know, like, when fifth grade is where it's at now, but yet they don't let them near the fifth graders. And what they don't understand is these kids already live in this situation, and they already know. And I think, not my child, that's fine, because it might not be your child, but it could be my child, and your child's gonna help my child because they're friends.
Yeah. I think it's probably never too early to talk to kids about that kind of stuff. I mean, my family was maybe different than most because when I was very young, I had people like my uncle who was struggling with substance abuse, and my parents were kind of hippies too, so they had the people that kind of had evolved out of that, like, having a good time, experimenting type of thing, partying, to where they had some friends who had struggled really bad with addiction. So I was educated on that stuff pretty young, just in the household. And then, we had like the DARE program, which I don't really think that the way they did that where I grew up, wasn't really very effective. But there are other programs that are. So to me, it's easy for me to say definitely, like, start talking to this with kids as early as possible, because I'm, looking at it as how I grew up. Obviously, people might have like ideological differences with that. They might think, no, you shouldn't expose my kids to that when they're little. But I think it's a public health issue,
Right.
and we should be talking to young people right away. And
Because we have an epidemic.
exactly, yeah,
As a
exactly.
matter of fact, it's not even an epidemic anymore. It's a pandemic.
And
So-
and it might not be your child. It could be my
Right,
child.
right.
But if your child is my child's friend, your child's going to try to help. And your child will be involved in some way. And if you give them the tools, my grandson's 11. He doesn't know everything, but he sure knows enough that if he sees something, he'll come and tell me, because we make sure that you come tell me first, and then I look and we'll see if we need to tell somebody else. And I look at Matt Gammon's son Christian. He's winning awards, all kinds of stuff, and I said, I wrote him the other day saying that generation is gonna save the world, because they're watching and seeing what's happening here, and their biggest question is why also. I mean, it's the school system, they have a great program, they have great people that want to teach these things, but they're limited to no end. Farmer just reduced the age of taking oxys down to 14 years old now. So why wouldn't you teach that 14-year-old and make sure that someone tells you that if your child takes this pill for more than 3 days straight, you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
Whether you like it, whether you believe it, it's going to happen.
Have you ever had surgery or anything?
I got my wisdom teeth out when I was probably 17, and I got I believe Percocet, and luckily it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Is I hated the way they made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
I took them the day I got home from the oral surgeon, and I went to sleep on the couch, and my mother went out to fill my prescription and bring me back like a milkshake or something. And I woke up and I was in so much pain. She got home and I took whatever the dosage I was supposed to take, drank my milkshake, went back to bed, and I just felt completely awful. And that was the only time I'd ever taken one. And like I said, luckily it made me feel awful, because obviously, I have, I could have that, addiction gene in my family, and my father and my father's brother, it affected him greatly. But so I feel very lucky just that in my situation, I didn't like the way it made me feel, and ever since then I was always just like, nope, I don't even. I've had multiple injuries at work, nothing too serious, but like tendonitis in the shoulder and pulled muscles and stuff like that. And I never take anything bigger than an ibuprofen, like the
600.
yeah, the big ones,
800.
But
Well, you knowing your self-knowledge of
Exact-
yourself. 'Cause
exactly.
All you have to do is feed it. The minute you feed it, you're all done.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
I think that it lives in everybody.
Oh yeah, sure.
So it's hard. Now, if you do become mayor, would you be willing to come together like how we meet at Collin Health? A lot, just to strategize on everything and things like that. And we're looking for like an all-around help support system. Are you willing
Oh,
to?
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
Because we have the Harrington Foundation, we have the Foster Foundation, and we have a lot of things that.
The three of our groups exist in the city of Somerville, and we're grassroots groups, but we're not really seen as being, or how do I explain it? We are recognized by a lot of aldermen, we are recognized by a lot of people, but as to ask us for our input, it's not there. So what I feel is that you need, in order to conquer anything, and to be very successful at resolving different issues, you have to use everything. You have to use all the suggestions. It may not, you might have a suggestion and then someone else with their input could make it the best idea. So that's all I ask is why not ask all the groups what their feelings are and see if we can come to a solution and how we can help it. Right now we have Esprit in the school, which is they go in and they actually evaluate students to see if they are going to be a problem with substance abuse or not. And actually Governor Baker made it mandatory. So it's not like we went above and beyond. We had to do that. All right, and I just recently walked down the hallway and one of the nurses reached out to me and said, I just want you to know that there is a psychiatrist that's here once a week for a half a day, and it's strictly for children in need of, that have problems with substance abuse. And I think that is one step in the right direction, but you need more than a half a day.
What about like like you said that there's other groups in the city. What about like a monthly roundtable discussion?
That would be
a nice idea.
That would be awesome. I mean, even like, we have Full Circle and Next Wave, alternative for junior high school. I'm not really sure, like, how they run. They've been around for quite a very long time, but there's no recovery high school. And people are like, well, you're talking about kids, and once again, when you look at addiction, you need to look at the child, because it's that age. And how crazy is it? Is that if you look at the statistics of the city, of around the neighboring cities, you notice that for, I think about 3 years, it was always, the age limit was 21 to 25. We lost a lot of kids. They were coming out of high school. They were raging addicts in high school. Once they came out of that loop and that constant of having the high school, and they just hit the streets. Like, they never went to college, or they never went anywhere above and beyond that point. And people people need to see that it was that age group, and it got hit real hard.
See, what we've noticed too is, well, I didn't mean to get off the subject,
That's all right.
but when we talk about city involvement, Judy and I have gone outside of Somerville to many different communities, and the one thing that really amazed us is that actually Medford, for instance, Malden and Everett, their mayors are very involved in addiction. They come out and they're actually campaigning at the State House, trying to get money for their recovery center they want to open in Malden.
Malden wants to open up like a day service, so that you'd have something to do during the day. You'd be able to have meetings there, and job fairs, and help people. People don't realize, Payton, is that when you're young like that and you suffer from an addiction, nobody taught you how to balance a checkbook. Nobody told you how to open up a bank account. No one taught you how to sew. I mean, the basic.
Or even do a job interview.
Right, or fill out a job application. They don't know how to do this. And the basics of life are gone. No one ever taught these kids how to do that. And there should be somewhere, for and it's really, I think it's real important. And I feel that, so the mayor, the selectmen, everybody in Malden are on the same page, but they're not getting the help from the surrounding communities. And who do they think is going to fill this place? Just not Malden people. They're going to be Method people, Somerville people. And I just don't understand why, people can't, they should be involved with each other. And I understand it's a lot of time. It is time consuming.
Can I ask you a question? When you were out there campaigning, do a lot of people mention the addiction problem?
Yeah, yeah. I've talked to quite a few people who. I mean, it's hard to find someone these days who hasn't been affected by it. Not everybody is always wants to open up about it or talks.
Stigma.
Yeah, or just people are. Sometimes people are quiet. They don't want to talk about anything personal. But I've spoken to tons of people in the city that.
And what were their questions to you, if you don't mind me asking that?
Lots of different questions. People, there's lots of different, as you guys I'm sure know, there's lots of mixed feelings on how to deal with it. In fact, like I've talked to people and I've mentioned like medical marijuana, whether it's not just for as pain relief, but also how the city's going to be getting money from dispensaries, and we're going to be able to use some of that money for addiction. And people have strong feelings about that. Sometimes there's people who are, I guess maybe they're more of like a cold turkey type of person. Like, no, people should just abstain from everything. I don't want anything to do with any kind of controlled substance or anything. And then there's other people, and those people are probably in the minority. And there's other people who are literally willing to try anything.
Right. Well, we know. Well, since we're really involved in the substance abuse field, even though we're not professionals, we deal with a lot of people, and we know that there are many people that don't become abstinent to everything. There are people that use marijuana as their recovery. There are people that go to clinics for methadone, Vivitrol, and Suboxone.
Suboxone's big, and now there's, and it's like nothing like biting your nose off to spite your own face, but now there's a big huge thing on the Suboxone end of they're abusing the Suboxones. They were abusing the I call them Johnnies. They're I forget what the technical term of it is, but they were abusing that. And now, did you hear that they actually have some form of Suboxone, and they're sticks, and they're actually implanted under your skin.
They're like time release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's 6 months to a year that so now you don't have to leave to go to a clinic and things like that. So I mean, that's good for the working person, because not all addicts are homeless.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The majority of them own jobs, and they just did a study on unions. Who was it on our show that they did one in Medford? Their trades people in Medford were the highest in the surrounding area of people that suffered from some form of addiction, whether it be alcohol or it be drugs.
I think especially more in the building trades unions, you see a lot of addiction, and you probably see alcoholism. You see alcoholism everywhere.
Yeah.
But
it's legal.
yeah.
The painters from the fumes, they say that it's.
And in the building trades, it's the classic. You hurt my back, hurt something. I'm out of work for a little while. Gonna get some pills. They make me feel great, and the classic story of I was on pills for so long. The pills were expensive. Prescription ran out. What's a lot cheaper than the pills?
Right.
And I've known tons of people in the trades who have had to deal with addiction, and plenty of people who are addicted but maintaining decent lifestyles and going to work every day.
Right.
So you said that there are going to be 4 dispensaries?
Yeah, there's going to be 4 dispensaries. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it's more money. The 4 dispensaries in the city will be contributing more in tax revenue. It's actually not tax revenue because they're nonprofits. So they're what we generally are called pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. It's like what we get from Tufts University and what we get from Partners Healthcare. And it's almost, I believe it's almost more. It's at least more than what we're going to be getting from Partners Healthcare. We're going to be getting more from the 4 dispensaries in payments in lieu of taxes than we get from Partners Healthcare at all. And it might even be more than. It's definitely more than Tufts, but it might be more than both of them combined.
And
Both
who
of the
has
two combined.
control over that money?
That I wish I had better research on to tell you.
Okay,
I'll be honest.
all right.
I was pretty involved in the planning, not the planning, but the passing of the zoning for the one in East Somerville, across from Vinnie's, the old I think it was a funeral home at one time.
Kelleher's.
Yeah, and then it was the Brazilian Spine Clinic. So there's a dispensary going there, and I went to 1 or 2 community meetings on that, and then I spoke at the planning board meeting. They had it at the high school instead of City Hall because probably some kind of double booking. So I was pretty up to date on the numbers and stuff then, and just with all the stuff that's been going on lately, I can't remember. I can't remember the exact.
Committee of people that will figure out where this money is going to go.
I can't remember.
know,
I can't
right.
remember.
I'm very interested in that. I'd like to know because like that should fund.
I believe Alderman McLaughlin would know because he was pretty involved in that. And I believe each ward that has one or each neighborhood, there's going to be money earmarked specifically for that neighborhood too.
Okay. And I know that we've got a thing from Matt, just a shout out for Matt McLaughlin that he actually put in what do you call that when you put in something resolution for a recovery court in the city of Somerville. How do you feel about that?
I think that's a great thing.
Now, as mayor, would that be something that you could make happen, or?
I think so. I think so. I don't want to speak out of school because there's like as far as legally there's jurisdictions that go along with that. I don't know if the state would allow the city to handle it in cases like that. Like if there was a charge and you could say, well, listen, instead of sending this kid or this person, this adult to Cambridge Court or Somerville Court or Woburn or wherever, we can deal with this in-house. We can deal with this here ourselves. We have our own system for that. I know in Portugal they've been doing that for quite some time now.
Right. Well, I know that when I was reading the article that that Matt wrote and things like that he had mentioned that other areas, but what I would like everybody to know is that Medford has a recovery court, and they were from Cambridge, and they got moved over to the Fells Way. It works. We have a girl, Carrie Ann Cacavaro, that she owes her life to it, and I know that she addresses it very well, and that if we were gonna have anybody probably present that, I would probably think she would be the best person to come out and present it because and as well as her husband are both graduates from Recovery Court, and
they both work for Banyan Treatment Center as well with Matt Gannum. And this is the thing that's really, really interesting. Like in 2014, when we first became Somerville Overcome an Addiction, I had gone to the high school and I had said, or was it Doug Kress or the Department of Health, that we have people that could come in and talk to the kids. But they have to have a query, and it's just
these people aren't going to pass
Right.
a query, but yet they're people like Joanne. They're outstanding members of the recovery world.
So they would be actually an asset to our community.
I think that's probably one of the most effective things is having people who have struggled and who've overcome it, or who are struggling with it on a daily basis but are clean, to to come in and speak to people and tell them their story. That's, I think, one of the most effective things that you can do.
People are afraid. We don't want to scare anybody, and I'm like, are you serious? You guys should be like running for the hills. You should be real scared
Yeah.
about what's happening out
Because
there.
first of all, there's two different drugs. There's two drugs out there, fentanyl and carfentanil. And the thing is, all you have to do is make one mistake, and you're 6 feet under.
Mhm.
Okay, and I do want to scare you because it is a
Right.
very, these are
Because
two
this is
very
your
dangerous
daughter
drugs.
and your son that are, okay, Mara, I'm gonna go over my friend's house, I'll be right back. Oh, okay. And you never see them again, and you don't know why, what happened. We had went to a parenting group, I think it was at Connections, and there was a nurse there that actually worked in a detox. She worked inside of a detox. She lost her son at the age of 18 years old. Never saw it. Never saw it. How do you explain something like that? There is an educated person, judges, you get it, surgeons, doctors, lawyers. It's everywhere.
Oh yeah, there's not a group or a demographic or
Right.
or anything that hasn't that hasn't been touched by it.
And it's the only thing that's not racist. And it's the only thing that's not talked about. It does not care who you are, where you're from, who your mother was, it does not care. It just comes from your foundation, starts to swirl down there, and it just rips everything that you know apart. And it's sad because you're never the same.
We're two broken women.
Yeah, and it's sad because you watch society care about things, and everything is worth caring for, and everybody is worth caring for because all lives matter. But yet, these kids are dying, and they're dying at such a rapid rate that it really
In
sucks.
the past 2 weeks, we lost 9 people.
Yeah, but it sucks the life out of you. It sucks the life out of you to do this. You end up fighting with each other because one person might have a better idea than the other person, and then the other person is so stressed because of the home life that little things get thrown in, and you can't handle the little things because you get these huge things, and it's just so disruptive. Have you ever seen The Devil? The craziest thing in my life, that to talk to somebody that's addicted, and 1 minute they're there and you could see them and you could feel them, and then the next minute you could just see it go, and it's the scariest thing. But yet they still have more rights than you. If they know their name, they know what the date is, and they know who the president is, they don't need no help. It's crazy.
No, for instance, like, I remember bringing Frankie up to Somerville Hospital. And a lot of times, a lot of mothers, and I have to admit, mothers, fathers, whoever, you couldn't get into a clinic unless you were high.
Oh my God.
So a lot of them we were in a round table when
Getting their 60-year-old
when Martha
parents.
Coakley was
to-
running for governor, and there were 13 of us there at that table,
Yes.
and we all had the same story, just might a little bit different from the other, but a lot of times we ended up having to feed our child something so that they could get help.
Could you imagine that? I mean, there were like women, older women. Like, I was in the car with my sister. We pulled up to this guy, and I'm like, oh my God, how could you resort to such a thing? That was the only way. And the whole time, Payton, it wasn't true. The whole time, it wasn't true. So it's like, who made that up? Who allowed that to happen? You know, because half of them never made it to the detox. They made it to the morgue, New Hampshire, Rochester, New Hampshire. The coroner quit. He's like, they weren't even doing autopsies. They weren't even doing. They were just
New Hampshire's been having
Actually,
a lot.
Manchester,
Ohio.
the month of September was 106 overdoses,
Yeah,
and 10 of them were fatal.
but yet
But it's right
they're
there.
gonna worry about a football player kneeling, sitting, standing. I mean,
No, I understand that. I understand that part.
No,
And it's our flag.
no, but it just people need to feel more comfortable talking about it, I guess. They need to come out better and have more support, you know, just like everybody else. And I think that that's what we're looking for here in Somerville. We don't want to be shamed anymore, because that's how we feel. We feel shamed. We ask people, you know, would you come, da da da, and they're like, oh, I think it should be a priority, just like everything else. I think you should show up, and that you should care just even a little bit, because I mean, we're voters. We're human. We work. We pay taxes, and so I don't know, a lot of other people and stuff. And I just think if something was out there.
Well, I think, like, you look at every month. There's something for every month of the year, right? There's, you know, breast cancer awareness month, and I know there's addiction. There's
September,
right, but not a lot of people know that, right?
No.
Like, you know, the NFL will be wearing pink cleats or pink or have pink towels or something
Right.
for breast cancer month, and you know, April is autism awareness month, and those are all great, and those are all really, really important
Right.
causes.
They should
But
wear purple on September.
right, exactly, and especially, I mean, and even I'm sure tons of people in the NFL probably have friends, family members, teammates, former teammates who.
I would say out of 20 of them, I bet you 15 of them have a problem. You know, because you don't get hit like that.
Yeah, or will develop a problem or have had a problem at some time. You know, there's the classic story of the.
Karen, for one.
Chris Herring, and you know, he's probably the only one that I think I know of that came out and said, hey, this happened. He lost everything. He was humiliated and still came out.
Yeah.
Kudos to you,
Well,
Chris.
and in the NFL, you know, if you do a urine test, I think opiates are only in your system for like 2 days, but marijuana's in your system for 30 days.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it's easier if you're a professional athlete or any kind of athlete. If you're having back problems, if you're in a lot of pain, they get tested for marijuana, and it's a banned substance.
Right.
But so they can't you know, eat a brownie or a gummy bear or you know, smoke a little pot or whatever to
Right.
ease their pain and help them sleep at night and maybe take the edge off of that.
Yeah.
So it's easier to pop a
Well,
pill.
not only that, the doctors, they're prescribed.
Yeah, they can have a prescription. They can have a prescription for it.
It's even, you know, CVS just passed something like maybe 2 weeks ago, where now they're capping the amount of opiates that come out, and now the people that suffer from long-term pain, they're angry.
Mhm.
They're angry that they have to go out of their way. What do you mean I have to keep going to the store every 3 days to get this stuff? I'm in pain. I'm terminally have pain, and I think that my own opinion of that is half that pain is not from an injury. If you don't have that because you've been on it for so long,
You're withdrawing.
you're withdrawing, and that's what the aches and pains are. It's not your back, and it's hard because, once again, not me. I have a prescription for it, so it's hard. It's hard
Right.
to monitor.
So what do you think about the clinics? What do they call them? To go in and inject and have someone there to.
I mean, I've got pretty radical ideas. People would say sometimes. I think people are going to do it, and if there's a safe place where you can do it with somebody there, and have somebody, you know, the most dangerous thing that an addict can do is shoot up by themselves, right?
They use alone.
Use alone, yeah.
That's why my son's gone.
Right. So, I mean, I think to a lot of people it sounds really crazy to say that we should have a clinic where people can go and use if they need to. But like people are gonna use anyways, and if there's people there that can counsel them, and if there's treatment available there to them, I'd be willing to talk to people about it. I'm not saying yes, I definitely think that is a thing. I would need a lot more education on it. But I think it could be a good possibility.
Right. At first I didn't agree with it, and then after thinking about it, I'd rather see someone alive than dead. And if there's going to be these clinics available for them, and then they get educated, and maybe eventually go in and get help, and recover from it, then I'd go for it myself.
Yeah,
But I have mixed emotions
I've
about it.
the first time I ever read it or saw it online, I was like, that's an insane idea.
Right.
But the more you think about it, the more you read about it, and I've talked to some people about it, and they're like, why does that seem so crazy? Like,
Right.
It isn't. It
No.
actually isn't. when
You
think
know,
about
something
it.
too is what people don't realize is that in these sites are also help.
yeah, social workers and
That they,
yeah,
right, that they have clinical people that are there so that, maybe because you have that, call it that window of opportunity only opens for quite a short amount of time. And if you come into the safe injection place, you're getting ready to do something and you have somebody else talking to you. You're not by yourself, and it'd be like, hey, why don't we not do that? Why don't we help you? And we have this to offer. They got the testing, HIV testing, they have Hep C testing. Total Health will help you get doctors and things like that. So there's so much more of the sites that people don't know that they should know, and it's half the time it's just ignorance holding everybody back, because it is when someone says, hey, that place over there, you can use dope over there. They'll be like, wow, they go in there and it's not.
yeah. It's not like it's not like a coffee shop in Amsterdam that has a big green
Exactly.
cross outside to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually a place of refuge. It's a place to help, and there's a lot of things in there, and I think that people should be made well aware of that also.
And I want to thank, like you said, Matt McLaughlin
Yes.
for bringing in that resolution for drug court. I did speak to him at the public health meeting, and I did mention before to others that I think that we really do need to have a drug court. And what happens when you have a drug court too is you have recovery coaches there that help them during that whole time. Recovery and that's a very important tool, because recovery coaches treat people where they're at, and they try to get them,
And then once again, there are people in this community that specifically advocate for just these things. Going through the proposals and this and that, I really honestly think that having these people come in, and talk to people about a recovery court. People talk about recovery coaching and things like that, and where they're good. And I mean, there's so many people out there that volunteer that you don't have to pay them.
We're actually recovery coaches, and
Right.
we don't get paid for it, but we
In
want to
order
help.
they do the recovery coach program here, but I'm still trying to figure out what they do with them after. I'm sorry, I mean, I seriously am.
What they do with the coaches that they
Yeah,
that-
that gets
that they've-
graduated,
yeah.
what happens to them? You need 500 hours to be able to become certified, so how do you get that? City of Malden offers a recovery coach program for free, as well as we do, but in order to take their course, you have to sign a commitment that you are going to commit so many hours to their programs, which helps you get the hours, which helps you get certified.
And they're using those recovery coaches in their drug court
Yes,
as well.
and their hospitals and their drug courts and wherever it may be.
And those are under the Malden Overcoming Addiction, so they're the ones that have the recovery coaches. So that city is actually using their grassrooted group which I don't know if we'd ever get to that point because we've been trying for 4 years to try to get to fit in somewhere that we could help, and we're still our own entity.
Well, I think if things go well in January, we'll find a way to fit you guys in.
Right, 'cause yeah, we all do. I mean, all the groups, we're all very unique in what we do. Harrington's, I mean, look at all the kids they help, they fund, all these programs, right down to Thanksgiving Day dinners. I mean, I got one here, and it's like people don't realize that suffering, people suffer. Just 'cause you have a title or you're somebody doesn't mean that you're not human.
And if you do, like you say, get in January, I would like you or Joe. I would like to see Joe become, not have his people just come into the meeting and then bring back the information to him. I think to have physically someone there to talk.
He needs to be a part of the community. You know what they always say, I always love this one, be a part of the, don't be the problem, be a part of the solution, not the problem. I tell people that all the time.
I mean,
because if you're not gonna help, I could sit there and talk to Joanne until she's blue in the face. She could be like, yeah, great, all right, awesome. And then you really think you got somewhere, and then you go home and find out Joanne has nothing to do with that. She has absolutely nothing to do with it. So the whole time she was agreeing with me, she was not going to bring it anywhere, and we find that a lot too.
Okay, so we have 15 more minutes left to this show. But what I did want to talk about is the simple fact that sometimes there's a real huge communication problem within the city. And I find that I worked for Verizon 28 years, and it was a communication company, and you know what? There was problem with communication there too. So the thing is that the higher-ups may have an idea, and then they go down to the next level, and then all of a sudden it never gets to the last level that really needs to know. Okay, so we need to make sure that we have good communication, great public, let the public be aware of what we have in the city for services.
And we have really good, power groups too, more. You know what I mean? I know that they would be willing to come in and sit down to see, how we can help each other to help ourselves survive this. Because
the third Thursday of every month, there is a MORE meeting down at 9 New Washington, which is the Lions Club on the second floor.
You should try to make one.
Yeah, what is it?
The third Thursday of every month.
Third Thursday, okay.
Right.
It's called Mass Organization for Addiction
We can send you
Recovery.
an email of the next one.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because I think that, just participation, people always say, all you need to do is see a flicker of light and you can see hope.
Well, when you're talking about communications, the city spends an enormous amount of money on communications, and they are extremely data driven. And there's that old saying is, figures lie and liars figure. They can make the data say whatever they want to say. The best way, and I know this from my experience working with the union and working in activism, the best way is person-to-person contact. And you have to be out there in the streets talking to people, at meetings talking to people. If you send some of the people that work under you, you're not going to hear the whole story. They're only going to tell you what they think you want to hear, or what they want you to hear. And if we have a mayor that has time to go on the Jim and Marjorie show on WGBH, or to go debate some sheriff down on the South Shore who is completely out of our jurisdiction, if we have somebody that has the time to do that kind of stuff, they should be able to come and sit down with folks like you and find solutions to fight this crisis that we have going on.
Right. I mean, we also suffer stigma too, I think, from other people, because, we're firecrackers, so they say. What we are is we're scorned, we're mad, and we're pissed. and we're like really kind of sick and tired of just keeping our mouth shut, especially when you're feeding us this information and we know that it's not true. And then we call you on that, and then all of a sudden we're a problem, so you kind of avoid us at all costs because you're gonna tell us something and we're gonna be like, oh.
They're telling you something that you already know off the top of your head isn't true.
Right, and to be able to come right back and be like, this is like A, B, C, and what you're saying is not true. Getting mad at us is kind of ridiculous because why wouldn't you as a professional person check your data to the max, especially if you know you're going in front of someone that's gonna call you out on it.
Right.
I mean, it's hard because it's almost like it's a cure and it's a curse too, because sometimes you really should keep our mouth shut, and it's like we don't.
No, but we're also told that something's territorial, and I don't think that anything that is in my community and that I pay taxes for, I own my own property. That this is nobody's territory. This is a problem that we have that's affecting the whole community as well as the state and the federal government. The whole country is affected by addiction. So it is everybody's right to find the right solution.
And when you you could say a name, you could say numbers, you could say names. The minute you start seeing them pictures, that's when it happens.
As a matter of fact, Saturday night, between 6 and 8, there's going to be a vigil at the East Somerville Community School.
Pearl Street, the Pearl Street side.
Right. We had to change it already once, so we're going to try to have it be as wonderful as it has been in the past. But I have no idea. All I can do is do my best. We can try to do our best to have it be very, very successful. And we do have a video of a lot of people that have been lost by addiction. And we want that message out there for people to see. We don't just want parents, we just don't want people that are coming there just for their sibling or their loved one. We want others to come in and see, this could happen to you. So respect these people by coming and
just be part of the community. You don't have to say anything. You really don't. Tell you the God's honest truth, most of the time I have no idea what to say. I live it every day and I'm speechless over it.
That's true. Like Judy's son, she doesn't know, or even I don't know if that day's gonna come when the phone rings.
Right, and
that
every
there's
day.
something going on
and every day, and it's probation problems, it's parole problems. It's this problem, it's that, it's just like, just always something, but there has to be a happy medium. There has to be a willingness. And a lot of times I think that the people, they've been there for a very long time. They're kind of set in their ways, and they know what's right for you, they know what's right for everybody. Every single person that suffers from addiction is different. Not everybody's addiction is the same, and I think that that's harder because you get the dual diagnosis. You get the people that have problems, and they've had problems for a while, and they're masking it with this, and then they add to it, and then add a little bit more, and let's do this, and how they dealt with them back then, they put them in prison. Now you can't shake that. You can't get a good job because you have a felon. You can't keep yourself off probation, but yet you're on parole or probation for something you did when you were 18 years old. Now you're 40.
It's a vicious cycle. It's never ending.
There's no way out of it unless you're not here anymore. It's the only way out.
Essentially, you basically get arrested for something that could have happened 20 years ago because you have that you already have the record, or you're on probation or parole or whatever. And
what they do is they tag it on at the end, so you could spend 10 years in prison, come out and have 5 years probation for something that you did when you were 12, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay, and it's just, I mean, I wouldn't even, like I said, I'm speechless. most of the time I'm completely speechless because it's like, where would you start? I don't know. First of all, we try to get out
Yeah,
of the
where
bag.
is that hope? When
Get
you
out of the
when you're
paper
going
bag you're in.
through when you go through your detox and you go out there and you go go through all your steps, even going into sober houses, and now you're in the real world.
And then you read in the newspaper how, whether it's true or it's not true, and how shady everybody else is, and they look at you like you're the shady one, and it's like, what? It's, people need to not do that to other people, and just kind of embrace everybody, and we just need to try to get as one. Shout out to everybody too that, that's out there in Vegas. How crazy is that?
Well, I think we have a crazy little world going on.
Yeah, we have a
out
crazy
there.
world, and it's kind of sad, but yet we have a generation of kids that are being brought up by no parents, living with their grandparents, or whoever will bless them with somewhere to sleep, and you really gotta thank God that that's gonna be the light, maybe to learn from that.
Right. So we only have 2 more minutes left. Is there anything that you'd like to say?
I want to share a story of about something that happened at my union's convention, the Teamsters convention, last in June of 2016. There was a guy who was a Teamster leader in Ohio named Travis Bornstein, and his son. That's that classic story of the college or high school athlete, maybe college athlete, who never got into trouble, was always the good kid, got injured, hurt himself, got addicted to pain meds, and found his way to doing heroin, and eventually succumbed to his addiction, and his friends. His friends left him in an empty lot, because they didn't want to get in trouble. So Travis Bornstein got up in front of 5,000 people, and he told the story of his son and how his son passed away, and he had his wife and his daughter up there with him. And the guy Travis was I believe was a Marine, and a really, really big burly guy. And not that makes a difference, but he came to tears, told us the story, and told us how he was starting a foundation called Breaking Barriers, Hope is Alive, in the memory of his son, and he was planning to purchase that lot where his son was dumped to create a facility, and they were able to raise $1.4 million. It wasn't planned, but people just got up and went up to the microphone and started throwing donations. So $1.4 million they were able to raise. And
That's wonderful.
Congratulations.
So I know we're going to be getting off in like 1 minute.
We want to
So-
really thank you so very much for, taking the time to come down and, fill us with some kind of inspiration and hope of better communication, within the world of addiction.
absolutely, it's my pleasure to be here.